It's Friday, everybody. Is the economy turning around? Are we in the early stage of the transition to greatness? Plus, what happens if we do get rid of all police? Apologies, do not placate the mob. Will kneeling, we've got a video to show you on that. And the best Bidenism of the week, one of the best ever, coming up.
The prediction was that the unemployment rate would rise to over 20%, and instead it dropped to around a little more than 13%, slight difference. And this time the greatest comeback in American history. Today is probably, if you think of it, the greatest comeback in American history, but it's not going to stop here. It's going to keep going because so many places are closed. I was watching our great vice president today being interviewed on CNBC. He did a phenomenal job, and he made a statement. He said, this is not going to stop, and 100%, he's always attributing everything to me, but I'll attribute this statement to him. He said, it's not going to stop because the numbers that you're looking at don't include all of those states that are closed. They haven't even opened yet.
Good news for America. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show. Isn't it nice to have something to start off a show with in this era that we're currently in that is undoubtedly positive for America? We thought that things were going to get even worse with the economy. Now, remember, we still have this very high unemployment rate, and technically speaking, I think you could argue that we are still very much in a depression, but it is an induced depression, sort of like an induced coma, as I've been telling you. And now we have some indicators that maybe we can come out of this thing. At least we can start to turn the curve around in our direction, right? Here's some numbers from CNBC today. Non-farm payrolls rose by 2.5 million in May. The unemployment rate down to 13.3%, which is still stunningly high. But remember, there are states. I'm here in New York City. New York City's still on full lockdown because de Blasio is insane, because Cuomo is a moron. Full lockdown. Unless you're a protester, then you can do whatever you want. Then you can run around and scream and yell and spit in people's faces and spit at cops. And, it's like a one big coronavirus petri dish out there, isn't it? But, we don't worry about that anymore. They must have a special social justice immunity to COVID-19. Or we were lied to. I want to say this today. I'm upset. And I'm mad that there aren't more conservatives who are also completely enraged. We shouldn't just be turning our attention to the Black Lives Matter protests that are going on and Antifa and all this stuff. We should also remember that in doing so, the media has abandoned a narrative they used for weeks, months, to keep us on lockdown, to take who knows how much money out of the hands of the American people, trillions of dollars. I know people, I have friends, fired, lost their jobs, don't know how they're going to pay their mortgage, don't know how they're going to pay their rent. Stores all over here might not open. And we were told it's because if you're in a group, you're putting people at risk. You don't even have the right to take the risk yourself because you're risking others. You're killing grandma if you go outside, if you get into a group. And now we see they're in groups all over the place. Huge groups, enormous groups, hours and hours and hours on end. Public pools are still closed in New York City, and they say they'll likely be closed the whole summer. But you can march for hours in a big protest. Someone want to try to explain that to me? This is the problem with the leftist mentality. They are addicted to control and being controlled. They either want to be the people, the elites that are controlling, or they want to be people who are just told what to do, as long as they're given some fanciful justification for it. Oh, this is to stop climate change. Oh, this is to stop violence. Oh, this is to stop COVID, whatever it is. Why aren't more conservatives outraged about this? I don't understand how it's possible not to just... I walk around and I want to just scream expletives. Everyone I see walking outside with a mask, I want to say, take your stupid mask off outside. You don't need a mask outside. Now, stores still mandated here. You can't even, I can't even go buy, go buy hamburger meat without putting on my mask. Got to put it on. Oh, got to keep everybody safe. It's outrageous. Oh, Buck, the protesters are wearing masks. Are they social distancing? Because I'm pretty sure that stores also have a limit for how many people can go inside. And also, I've seen lots of protesters without masks. I've seen plenty of them. Usually more of the, well, it's interesting, isn't it? For looters, the mask is great. The mask requirement is fantastic. It's also good for anybody who wants to do journalism and get close to some of these protests and see what's really going on, because they don't really know who you are. But I want to focus on the positive for a second. I am legitimately furious. This isn't some performative media outrage or something. I can't use the words, but whatever you think that I want to say, trust me, I want to say those things. And I want to yell them, and I want to be in a press conference with de Blasio and just hammer that guy with the questions that need to be asked to show. And Cuomo, you gotta listen to me, because I have a team of medical experts, and if you don't listen, you're gonna be killing people. Why should you listen to me? No, we're all done with this. De Blasio's a failure. Cuomo's a failure. And I know a lot of you are in states across the country, but remember, New York is such a big economy. There's so much that goes on here for companies, for corporations, and that it affects the national economy. And it's not just New York, Los Angeles still. I mean, the stuff that these Democrats have enacted is absolutely outrageous. And it was all subject to the whims of the mob, literally the whims of the mob. Let's get into these positive numbers here for a second, and then let's see that there's a big lesson to take from this. Non-farm payrolls, I told you. Wall Street estimates had been for a decline of 8.3 million and a jobless level of 19.5%, which would have been the worst since the Great Depression. Much of the gain came from those classified as temporary layoffs due to the coronavirus-related economic shutdown. This means that things are getting going again. People are getting their jobs back. It's not really job creation. They're getting their jobs back. And we're starting to see things move again. We're starting to have our country back, our lives back. And this is nothing but good news. It's not amazing news because we still are in a big hole. We still have a lot of unemployment. We still have a lot of problems. But at least it is positive data when we were expecting a lot more negative data. And it matters, and it helps our psychology, and it's a good thing to get us going off into the weekend, remembering that if only it was not for the stupidity of some of our leadership class, we would be fine and the economy would be thriving. This was a decision that they made. This was a choice that was made. And it was clearly the wrong one. And they didn't even mean what they were saying, because if it was really about saving lives to social distance, then they should be lying down in the streets to stop people from marching in the streets in order to save their lives from COVID-19, right? But they're not doing that. They're not doing that at all. Wow, you had a big gain today as well in the stock market. People are expecting stocks to be making a huge comeback. I've got to say, this is terrifying for some people. You know who this is really bothersome to? Libs, Democrats. Oh, I know. We'd like to think that they're not so disgraceful. They're not so unbelievably ideologically polluted that they would be actively rooting for the depression to continue so that Donald Trump will lose and Joe Biden, the left's puppet king, is going to be the next president of the United States. Here is, though, just an example of the mentality on display. Trump just went through these numbers. He's saying things are going well. And here's what he play clip 15.
We're going to be back there. I think we're going to actually be back higher next year than ever before. And the only thing that can stop us is bad policy. Frankly, left-wing, bad policy of raising taxes and Green New Deals and all of the things that you have been writing about long and hard. That will stop it like you wouldn't believe. And frankly, it's holding it back. If there were no possibility that that can happen, and I like to be an optimistic person, I think we're looking very good. I think even before today, the polls that I've seen and the polls that we do were looking very good. But if we didn't have the possibility of having massively higher taxes like the Democrats want to do, and Green New Deals, which are totally ridiculous, frankly, ridiculous, and I'm a big environmentalist. I believe strongly in taking care of our environment. We have the cleanest air we've ever had, like over the modern era, which, let's say you go back 30 years, we have the cleanest air, the cleanest water we've ever had. We're setting all sorts of really good environmental records. We're very proud of that.
And yet, do you think that any of this is celebrated by Democrats, including those who pretend to care so much about the environment? Now, I know that there's a lot less pollution in the air because of the shutdown, but do you think that they celebrate any of the good things happening now? No. What is good for the country right now and until November, what is good for the American people across the board, a strong economy is good for all of us. Law and order is good for all of us. Just think of anything that, universally speaking, is a positive for the American people. It is now viewed as a negative by the Democratic Party. They are more clearly than ever rooting against American safety, security, prosperity, happiness, optimism. The country has to be bad. Things have to be bad so that they can make sure they get rid of Orange Man, who is bad, Trump. That much became very clear during the press conference. My friends, we are in for the political fight of all time. You will see the left has already embraced insanity, lies. They have no integrity to protect anymore. They will do whatever they think is necessary and is useful. Those are the only two things. What they think is necessary and what they think is helpful to their cause. That's what they'll do now. And their willingness and the willingness of the Democratic Party across the board to collude against the interests of the American people and to make sure that we suffer more than we should because it will be helpful to them in their election against Donald Trump. That is beyond doubt. It's obvious, and anyone who denies it at this point is either delusional or lying to you. So we hear all of this good information about where the economy is heading. It's still in a bad place, but at least it's positive news, no question. And the moment the president stops reciting all this positive data, you have the journalists jump in. Wait, what about? Oh, no, they don't like this. They can't allow the president to start to shift the narrative, turn to optimism, turn to improvement. And as he calls it, the transition to greatness. The president told me a couple of weeks ago when I was visiting him in the Oval, Buck, I'm telling you, we're going to transition to greatness. The next quarter is going to be huge. He said huge. That's not surprising. Huge like you've never seen before. And once the president has the initial, because remember, so much of this is about people's perception, right? People always describe the market in particular, and the market is really a reflection of the economy as driven by fear and greed, but really optimism, hopefulness, people's sense of the future, a lot of that is very directly involved in how things go, what kind of spending, what kind of, when people think the future is good, when people think that they can be positive, there are enormous beneficial effects to the economy. And the Democrats recognize this is optimism, prosperity, good things for America are a mortal threat to the Democrats' election plans. Don't forget that. It's true. It's motivating what's going on with these protests in part. It's certainly motivating the people organizing this behind the scenes. It's the media's single purpose in life right now is to stop Trump from getting reelected. So after he finishes telling us the good news, this is what happens.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Can I just, so that shouted at him as he's sitting down. Why don't you have a plan for systemic racism? Does anybody have a plan for systemic racism? And I mean a plan that's not stupid. What's the plan? What do we defund police? Is that the plan to end systemic racism? If you defund police, high crime and predominantly minority areas of the country will be the most immediately and most severely negatively impacted. And when I say defund, I even mean large reductions in funding. This does not address inequality. The people that are telling the American people, they're really speaking to Democrats with this stuff, but pretending that cops are racist and bad, this is just manipulating the emotions of the ignorant left. But it continues.
Why haven't you laid out a plan?
I'd like to sign this bill. This is a very different thing. And by the way, what's happened to our country and what you now see, it's been happening, is the greatest thing that can happen for race relations, for the African American community, for the Asian American, for the Hispanic American community, for women, for everything.
What's your plan?
Because our country is so strong, and that's what my plan is. We're going to have the strongest economy in the world. We almost are there now. We had the strongest economy anywhere in the world, and now we're going to have an economy that's even stronger.
Sir, how would a better economy?
I'd like to sign this.
Yeah, just to follow up, how would a better economy have protected George Floyd? Sure, I'll ask.
How would a better economy have protected George Floyd? What a stupid question. These are journalists. Okay, is the president allowed to talk about anything else? I just want to know that. When the president says, "Hey, everybody, I want to, commemorate D-Day." How would D-Day have saved George Floyd? What? It's a non sequitur. One has nothing to do with the other. It's just these people are pathetic, but they're destroying the country. They advance narratives that are dangerous and damaging and undermine all of us and are meant to exacerbate tensions and suspicions and animosities. National journalists. They're based in New York. They're based in D.C. I know many, many, many of them personally. They are bad people. I don't know what else to tell you. They do not have your interests at heart. And a lot of you say, well, Buck, I'm out in areas where we don't have to deal with that as much. Not really. There aren't a lot of states that are so red that you don't have the crazies. I saw some of the stuff going on in Austin, Texas recently. What's up, KLBJ fam? But I was like, maybe is Austin the place that producer Mark and I could move to if Florida's, got no room at the inn? Austin's looking like it's got a lot of lib wackos.
We're going to be back and we're opening our country, and I hope that the lockdown governors, I don't know why they continue to lock down, because if you look at Georgia, if you look at Florida, if you look at South Carolina, if you look at so many different places that have opened up, I don't want to name all of them, but the ones that are most energetic about opening, they are doing tremendous business, and this is what these numbers are all about. And you have to remember one other thing very importantly. I think it's extremely important for you to remember that many of our states are closed or almost closed. Some of the big ones, New York, New Jersey, they're starting now to get open, I hope. And I hope they also use our National Guard. Call me. We'll be ready for them so fast their heads will spin.
The inability of the Democrat Party to put aside its partisan aims, even just to let us have our lives back in places like New York and New Jersey, is terrifying, but it's a reminder these people don't care about the destruction that they create in their quest for power. It doesn't matter. the suffering, doesn't matter. You still have people who became famous doctors and epidemiologists, the experts overnight, who are saying, guys, sorry, it's just too dangerous. The science tells us you can't go out there. You got to social distance. They were drawing circles in parks to separate people and clapping for themselves and cheering. And, oh, look, we need to make sure that we social distance in the parks. There are signs everywhere. And now those same doctors and nurses that I've seen that have become, prominent voices on this are saying, yeah, just kidding. Protesting against systemic bias is so important. Okay. What do you want us to do? So far, the only policy proposal that I'm aware of here is defund the police, which is, I don't know if you could think of a more destructive and stupid and maniacal position. And it's not just something that's being, tossed around by the anarchists. Oh, no. Defund the police is something that you hear now in the city legislature in Los Angeles. They just said they're going to cut police funding $100 to $150 million and redistribute it to the communities in need. You know what the communities in need, jackasses? Safety and less crime. That is number one, okay? That is what they need. They don't need more bureaucrats in the public school system who don't even teach. There's a ton of that goes on in these places. Oh, yeah, we need another teachers union rep. We need an assistant to the assistant to the assistant for the teachers union. They don't need to fatten the pension benefits of city employees in Los Angeles even more than they are. They don't need to redistribute the 150 million of people in need. And does anyone think that they looked at the budget with clear eyes and were like, wow, we really have some waste, fraud, or abuse in the police budget here, so let's spend it more wisely? Come on. Nobody believes that. This is all just a concession to the crazy, loony left. As I told you yesterday, they're not rational anymore. You can't get them to see things like normal people would. They're all, it's a combination of the experiment we've run by locking everybody up, limiting human contact, giving them no distractions. Now everyone's really more political and more politicized than I think they've ever been before. And then you also add to that COVID-19 is not the end of the Trump presidency, and they were hoping it would be. It's not. It's not going to do it. And so, think about that too. I mean, the exploitation of that, because there were a lot of, it was really scary for our seniors there for about 6 weeks. Oh, notice how the trend also in countries all over the world is you've got about a 6 to 8 week run of this disease, and then it fades. Irrespective of lockdown status, irrespective of test and trace, some places got hit worse than others, but you can't actually draw a correlation, or rather can't even find causation between those that took certain steps and why they were hit less severely with the disease. But the curve was largely the same in terms of the duration of the up and then the duration of the down across the board, which just means that this makes its way through the human population and then it fades like seasonal influenza does every year. This was particularly lethal to seniors. I understand that. And, if you're a senior and you made it through, to this point, I think, you're not out of the woods from COVID-19, but you're a lot closer. And, we're going to be able to, Trump is pushing so hard for these vaccines to get expedited. And, you're going to be in, I think, pretty good shape come 2020, the beginning of 2021, when things could really have a big spike again. I think that we're going to find that we've got this largely controllable, if not entirely under control, that it's manageable. That's what the president told me. I said, Mr. President, no second lockdown. He said, Buck, we're not doing a second lockdown. I said, okay. He said, we're going to put out fires as they come up. We see one, boom, we're going to take care of it. That's how we're going to do this. We're not going to just tell everybody to lock themselves inside, which was always a crazy policy. But again, I'll bring you back to the mainstream journos and what they think about all this, what their focus is.
Will you take questions after, sir?
Black unemployment went up by 0.1%. Asian American unemployment went up by 0.5%. How is that a victory?
You are something.
How is that a victory?
Thank you very much. I have to say, though, it's been an honor. This is such a great achievement. I feel so good about it. This is just the beginning. The best is yet to come.
I think the president's right. The best is yet to come, and that's what terrifies the LibJournos. You imagine what it looks like? We go into September, and all of a sudden you're seeing the unemployment rate just dropping back to our decades-long lows. Now, I'm still worried about all the debt that has been accrued and the corporate bankruptcies that are looming and all the spending that has been going on. And there's a lot of, I'm sure people have racked up credit card debt, and there's going to be problems. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be easy. But the fact that this is, and remember, the experts were all predicting, people whose job it was to get right what the numbers would look like in May. It's not that they were off. They got the trajectory wrong, right? They got the direction of the unemployment numbers wrong, which that feels like a shift in momentum. The journos hate this. They hate this. If it means, think about it this way. They were willing to keep us all locked down for 2 months as a means of controlling us and to throw a wrench into the gears of the Trump economy. They were willing to do that. And in New York and New Jersey, they're willing to continue to do this to us. I mean, if it sounds like, Buck, why are you so mad about this? It's in part, my friends, because I still can't go to the gym. I still can't go to the roof of my own building. Not allowed to go outside and get some air. Can't do it. Not safe. Not safe. Have to wear a mask or I could be barred from my own residence. And it's not, I can't really blame my building ownership. It's de Blasio and Cuomo. These people are total morons and cowards on top of it. They're despicable. They're despicable. There's no one even pushing them on this, because the problem is, the national media doesn't really, they don't get access to these guys. They don't really care. And they're on board with the Democrat agenda. It's very, I know I'm very frustrated today because I'm just so enraged. I'm enraged by places like CNN and the New York Times, the dishonesty with which they're not only covering the protests that are going on, but also the way that they've approached everything that's going on with the switch from, oh my gosh, you can't be outside, to, well, as long as you're protesting something we like. I mean, the March for Science wasn't really about science. The Women's March wasn't really about women. These Black Lives Matter protests aren't really about ending racism. These are mobilization movements of the left in their war against Trump. This is not about reform. This is about power. You've got to see it that way. You got to know what's happening around us. Otherwise, they will get away with it, and they'll manage what they want. They'll manage to continue to just drive this country into the ground, because it's better, the Democrats' feeling on a prosperous America is if they can't be in charge, nobody can be in charge. That's a scary thought, isn't it? But how else do you make sense of their claims that we should defund police? How else can you make sense of what they're telling us that they want to do to the economy now? I like when Vice President Pence, in his very, very genteel and gentlemanly fashion, is like, oh, no, these commies hate this country too. Play 13.
What we believe the real threat to the economic recovery going forward are the policies of Joe Biden, the policies of Democrats in Congress that are already advocating raising taxes, increasing regulation, the Green New Deal, restarting the war on coal, all the opposite direction that laid that solid foundation President Trump laid that created more than 7 million jobs. That's the foundation that you see in evidence today. the strength of the American people, the fundamental strengths of this economy. And that's the path that we're going to keep this nation on for the rest of this year and for 4 more years.
And let's understand that the narrative that the left has been counting on for months now is, look at how terrible the economy is. It's all Trump's fault. Look at how awful things are going in your life. It's all Trump's fault. If things are on the rebound, even if we are on the upswing, everyone will be able to see this. And the Trump administration's story, which is, I think, the true story, is, hey, we got hit with a once in a century pandemic, but our economy is so strong and we are so resilient because of the pro-market and pro-growth anti-regulation approach that we have, that we're already coming out of it. You want to put these wackos in charge with the Green New Deal and their socialism and their, universal basic income and all this other stuff? You want to do that? Really? That's going to be a tough one for Democrats. So remember, a Great Depression, no freedom, locked in your homes, not able to enjoy life, not free outside on the streets in cities, businesses burning, and the collapse of mutual trust and respect for each other and for the government. These are all things that benefit the Democrat Party and that, if they have their way, they would like to see. So we are not on the same page even about the most basic things in this country. We're not trying to achieve the same goals through different ends. They want misery for as many people as possible so that they can manipulate those emotions and get those voters to mail in those ballots and make confused Joe Biden the puppet of the Democrat Party sitting in the White House. That's what they're hoping for. These leftists are disgraceful.
You see, in Virginia, we no longer preach a false version of history, one that pretends the Civil War was about state rights and not the evils of slavery. No one believes that any longer. And in 2020, we can no longer honor a system that was based on the buying and selling of enslaved people, not in 2020. So I want us all to tell that little girl the truth. Yes, that statue has been there for a long time, but it was wrong then, and it is wrong now. So we're taking it down. I know some will protest. Some will say Lee was an honorable man. I know many people will be angry. But my friends, I believe in a Virginia that studies its past in an honest way.
Governor Northam, hero of the fight against systemic racism. Wait a second. Isn't Governor Northam the guy who was either in the KKK uniform or the blackface? Is it? Oh, yes. And not sure which tells me that this was like a pretty routine thing for him back in the day. But does he have to lose his job or step down? No, of course not. Why? With Democrats, it's never about principle. It's always about power. Always. It's amazing to see how many people right now are using this as an opportunity to burnish their wokeness credentials, their liberalism, their leftism is on full display, and they see nothing. There's no part of them that stops to think, am I doing these things because I actually think it will change anything, or is this just all self-congratulation, right? Am I really helping people here, or am I, the equivalent of the person who goes to the $5,000 a plate, charity gala somewhere and gives a little bit of money to the Society for, orphan puppies or something, Is this something that is really a cause that people are personally invested in? Or is this just all burnishing their own personal image? Look at how amazing I am. Virtue signaling. It's a big virtue signaling bacchanal right now. Everyone's just going for it. Oh, look at me. I'm the one who opposes racism the most. How? What are you doing? Are you taking any risk? Are you putting in real work? Are you doing anything that requires effort? Because if the answer is no to all of these things, and all you do is what the crowd is demanding right now from, and then I just mean this as a general sense for any individual, really it's worth, I mean, an ethical person, an introspective person would think, hold on a minute, do I really care about this cause, or do I just care about the perception of me as it relates to the cause? But see, the left would crumble if people actually asked that question.